President Bola Tinubu has directed the National Single Window Steering Committee to ensure the digital trade facilitation platform becomes fully operational by the first quarter of 2026. Represented by his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, Tinubu emphasized the platform's importance in supporting Nigeria's goal of a $1 trillion economy and implementing the 2026 tax reforms. Launched in April 2024, the NSW aims to streamline trade by consolidating all import-export processes on a unified electronic portal. It is expected to cut trade costs, reduce delays, and enhance transparency at Nigerian ports. Gbajabiamila stressed the initiative's critical role in boosting investment, revenue, and global trade credibility. And to help us understand this better and what this can do for the Nigerian economy, I'm joined by Dr. Obele, who is an economist. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's really great to be here.
And I also have Dr. Femi Egbesola, who is the President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. It's nice to have you around, sir.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Let me start with Dr. Obele. Now, the National Single Window is designed to consolidate import and export procedures into a single digital portal. But how do you see its design and possible effectiveness?
Well, to start with, this is one major solution that we have been clamoring for a while now because of the hassles and the challenges of mobilizing the necessary documentation, payments, approvals, and all that is required, from MSMEs and also regulators and OPSCs and institutions when it comes to facilitating export for export businesses. So, but then it's very crucial for me to stay here that its effectiveness and its delivery from an overarching standpoint is still very much hinged on the Nigerian government having a strategic trade policy or having a trade strategy, so to speak, that what would be our export strategy, was our trade strategy in general. How do you want to compete in the market? How do you want to stand out? What are our comparative advantages and all that? So, but it's more important for us to place lots of energy around that, because then again, the platform would only facilitate what already exists. All right, how do we close the regulatory gaps that already exist? How do we ensure regulatory effectiveness? How do we ensure SMEs are more export ready? How do we ensure SMEs are meeting up to the standards? Except that platform will solve some of these challenges, all right? But significantly, from my knowledge of how such platforms work, it's literally to facilitate. Its effectiveness is hinged on the quality of a strategy and execution level on ground when it comes to the parties involved, to start with. So the platform is timely, it's relevant. I mean, it can facilitate lots of transactions, facilitates effectiveness when it comes to trade and all that, and access to markets and all that, critical bits, access to finance and exhibition and all those information that people need or businesses need. But first and foremost will be the big questions around SME effectiveness. What exactly is our trade positioning and all that? How are we building the right infrastructure to ensure that SMEs themselves are export ready? Because if you're not export ready, if you're not ready to exchange value and what the world now determines or defines as value in the regional or in the sub-regional or global market, then just having an export single window or a trade single window is just, just a case like you have, let's say you have an injury and instead of you to treat it, you're just administering, a medication and all that. So it's a lot more deeper than that. However, the platform is required and necessary, but it's not sufficient to help us get to where we're going to.
Okay, so we'll pick it from the point where you said it has to do with all parties involved, and I scale that to Dr. Egbesola. Now, this will see operational integration between customs, the FIRS, NAFDAC, SON, and immigration. Now, can it actually reduce trade delays and cut costs, as it could translate into some sort of bureaucratic overload if these other issues are not dealt with?
As rightly said, the National Single Window is going to solve a lot of problems for those of us who are in the MSME ecosystem. Over time, we've had so many issues in the ports, and some businesses have even gone under because of these kind of challenges. So this time, we're happy that there's going to be a transformation, a digital transformation. And like he rightly said, it will only work if we want to make it work. Digitalization is only useful if people are able to use it. So one, there is need to create awareness. One thing is to have a policy. One thing is to have a structure. Another thing is for the users to be aware about it. So I think a lot of awareness needs to be created among the MSME space so that those MSMEs who are expected to use it will be aware in the first place that we have this one awesome initiative. Second, again, is after awareness to build the capacity of these MSMEs to be able to use it. Quite a number are not digitally literate. They cannot work on that. Some of them don't even have internet-ready facilities or gadgets to be able to use some of these digital platforms. So it's important that the capacity of these MSMEs are built to be able to use this. Again, also, there is need for us to begin to now see how we can now sensitize even those in the rural areas to be able to take advantage of this, because it is a two-way thing. It's not just about export alone, it's also about import. While a lot of manufacturers, from small scale to big manufacturers, also import raw materials that they use for their production process. This national single window system will also help to bring down the bottleneck. Before now, the human interface has caused a lot of issues. It has raised our trade costs, and that is already affecting our business. This will make us more competitive if it works. And I believe it is going to work because the customization has begun sometimes past. It's not just now. A lot of consultation has also happened. We've been invited to a number of town hall meetings and all of that. And at the same time, too, we also want to see this initiative working because the president himself is interested about it. And we already have a number of these agencies aligning up to this digital umbrella so that we all can see it work. So I think one of the advocates we need to do as also business membership organization is to continue to shout to ensure that this come to stay, not just another policy statement like what we experienced in the past that will be announced without optimal performance. We also must also be ready to provide a channel where government can also get feedbacks about the challenges that comes therein when it becomes full blown, and see how we can also recommend better ways that this platform can serve all. If it does, we are going to see that MSM will be able to save a lot of funds that we said, which is very critical to our growth. We are also going to be more competitive both globally and locally because our product will be cheaper because of lower costs. It's also going to engender more employment because when MSME grow, we are going to see more. So to me, it's a win-win situation for MSMEs and government. It's going to also bring more revenue to government. And I think it's one policy that we should allow the president and this government.
This would actually mean that this is hinged on performance and implementation. But Dr. Obele, a while ago you talked about strategic trade policies, and while some people are speculating or saying that it would improve transparency and appreciation in Nigeria's global trade credibility, one would wonder what sort of strategic policies are we actually referring to if we are going to have some sort of global competitiveness in the sector?
Thank you very much, and great submission, Dr. Egbesola. Yeah, Dr. Egbesola. So the platform significantly, if we begin to think about it from a policy standpoint, one major block will be empowering SMEs generally to be export ready, regardless of where they are on the value chain. So whatever policies will, for instance, policies are aimed at access to finance, policies are aimed at increasing production, policies are aimed at helping MSMEs meet trade quota or, supply quota and all the likes. Policies are aimed at also improving the knowledge and capacity for Nigerian MSMEs to export generally. So to start with, that's a low-hanging fruit because quite a couple of MSMEs I've met in my own career that are, that have very good products and are ready to export. But you see, there's a lot of struggle for them to even access the market. They don't even know the market that would need their product in response to, from a trade angle, in terms of export destinations rather for their products. So that's on one end. On the second end would be policies that facilitate ease of doing business between regulators, MSMEs, and also organized private sector institutions. So like my senior colleague on the call has mentioned as well, is that significantly across board it's going to be a win-win. But underneath that win-win, there has to be a strong strategic trade policy and reforms, that would be used to unlock the value of that platform in its sense. Then another component I think will be really, really important as a low-hanging fruit would be the services sector. All right, the Nigerian services sector currently makes about 55 to 58% of the GDP of the Nigerian economy. In fact, of the non-oil block to start with, and non-oil block itself, holds about 54 to 55% of the Nigerian economy. And globally traded services, digitally traded services rather, has outpaced goods traded by at least 16 to 19%. So the future in terms of where all of these export dynamics is headed, in as much as there's going to be lots of goods, facilitation and all that, it's also going to be services. Now, we have a strong low-hanging fruit when it comes to the services economy. The big ticket is how can an individual who delivers a service, also find access to platforms or institutions or markets and opportunities where they can deliver the service, and how can we use that to broker some form of transactions and effective best use of access in the sense on those platforms for such individuals, and also ensure young people or people generally can also make monies on the platform by virtue of accessing the markets that need the digitally traded services that they have to offer. So, so in my own opinion, I would want to think of SMEs generally, and also organizing the market generally, and also facilitating services traded, across board. So I think those are, for me, the easy low-hanging fruit, safe to say, that we can easily begin to latch on from a strategic standpoint. Every other thing else, when you begin to look at it beyond these things, will now require lots of value addition to the raw materials, lots of value addition to the natural resources that already exist in terms of positioning them to be export ready. So it's not just enough for the businesses to be export ready, but also the product has to be export ready at the level and at the level in which its value for the export destination or the global or regional market.
Well understood, I must say. Now, I like the part that you talked about how extensive it will be in terms of its impact in the entire market. But then we need to break it down a bit and look at the grassroots, so to speak, if I could put it that way. And I bring it to Dr. Egbesola. Now, in terms of Nigeria's economy and the short and long-term plans, and how do you think the impact will be measured? Because you are a major player in the domestic sector, and of course, how the SMEs will contribute towards improving Nigeria's economy in that regards.
Well, for now, if you want to export, you need to go to NAFDAC office, fill their forms, pay their fees, get certificated, go to the next office, Standard Organization of Nigeria office, go to customs office and all of that. That's a sheer waste of time. That should not happen at this time and age. So we are going to have that come to an end. It means that we are going to save a lot of time in these processes. It also means that human interface will be removed, and for us that is a big deal, because a lot of kickbacks, let me put it that way, is going down the drain through this human interface. This we are also going to be able to, and that will help us to be more competitive if we are able to save costs. When we are competitive, like I said the other time, our products will be cheaper both locally and globally. It also means Nigerians will be able to buy cheaper products. By extension, too, you also discover that it will attract investments. Many people, many investors don't want to come to our shores because of the bureaucratic bottleneck in the ports. And this is a far cry. This is going to end or be reduced when this national single window starts, because it is also going to incentivize import and export. We'll also have our naira strengthened because we're able to do more export, particularly for MSMEs, who contribute about 50% to the GDP. It also means that more jobs will be created, because when the MSME community is growing and strengthened, we will have more jobs coming up, because they will also need to have more hands for their businesses. It is also going to increase revenue for government, because at the end of the day, when MSMEs are thriving, they'll pay more taxes and be more compliant to other regulations that has to do with fees and levies to government. And to us, it's a big deal too, because as much as we are making money, we also want to be responsible SMEs. By and large, it is also going to encourage made in Nigeria products the more, because if we are able to import seamlessly our raw materials, we'll be able to do more here. Many are discouraged from manufacturing here because of these bottlenecks and the cost that is associated with it. Many have lost investment, have lost contracts because the transaction at the port delays them, and such contracts have been cancelled. It's bad. All of this is going to be reduced or perhaps be removed with the national single window. So what we need to be doing as MSMEs is to continue to shout to government that this implementation must see the light of the day, must be very optimal. The president must just not back it up, but also be committed to make it all work. When we have new initiatives like this, some processes along the line will always kick against it, will also always not make it work because they also benefit from the laxities that we have in the value chain. We must work together to ensure that we tackle this so that this natural single window works. To us, it's what we need. Remember too that we now have after African Free Trade Continental Area, and one of the limiting factors also is this bureaucracy that has to do with some of these multiple agencies that you have to deal with. This national single window will also reduce that bureaucratic bottleneck, such that we'll be able to also trade seamlessly in Africa, borderless in Africa, and that will do a lot of benefit to us. And then all these threats we have from international, some other global nations like the United Nations and all of that about increase in tariff may not really affect us if MSMEs can begin to trade internally, regionally in Africa, and I think that would be very good for us. That's one of the things the national single window would do for us.
All right, let's look at the deadline now, Dr. Obele. Now, the finance minister placed emphasis on execution over planning. Can the NSW platform realistically be implemented by Q1 of 2026, given Nigeria's history with digital infrastructure rollouts?
Top of mind, I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's impossible, broadly speaking, because the intelligence that the government currently needs to build it is already out there. There are lots of reports. I mean, my colleague on the call also has also said a lot of things. He's the president of the Small Business Association of Nigeria. They've been consulted. They've been wide consultations of it. So I believe that the government has enough significant intelligence to work with. In terms of the building of those platforms, ideally, within the next 6 months, you can always come up with a strong MVP at a national level, and technically about 9 months. We have about 9 months to the end of Q1 2026, if you look at it from that context. So it's enough time to get anything going. Even an MSME, a startup can launch a technology product in 9 months, all right, if you think about it that way. So the bits and pieces around that might halt or impact on the quality of execution would be using the intelligence government already has and how that intelligence is being translated to the functionality of those platforms. And also, in my own opinion and recommendation, working backwards to ensure that there's a strategic, there's a trade strategy and national trade policy that is governing the workings and the growth and development and best use of that platform. So it's not just enough to have a platform, but how you best using technology to ensure that we're facilitating trade and development to achieve the $1 trillion economy mark. So top of mind, I think it's possible. Again, if you also factor in government bureaucracies and all that, we're expecting that there's a form of pace and commitment to get that going. And that reason why this also needs to happen by the end of Q1 next year is because you need an average of almost 6 to 9 months, to test, for people to use the platform, to onboard correctly, to redevelop and improve how the platform works, how the platform services, how the platform is functional to different economic agents or stakeholders who will be involved in the use of the platform, and how that platform also feedbacks intelligence for a 2.0 version, if there's going to be a 2.0 version, if it's going to be a national application that facilitates that, or if it's just going to be a website, so to speak. So you need almost about 6 to 9 months to do the reiterations, to recollect intelligence and feedback from the platform and all of that. So I would expect lots of best use of intelligence meeting technology to roll out this platform, as well as strategy and maximizing the already existing wealth of knowledge within the trade and import and MSME space in Nigeria at the moment, and even globally as well. Another bit again is to consider would be the 2027 elections. From Q2, Q3 next year, there's going to be lots of pressure and conversations around 2027 elections. There's going to be lots of political navigation political how will I put it, impact around how the economy runs and functions. So again, it makes all the sense in the world to get this out of the way quickly and to get things running. So whether or not the current president comes back to power, there is already something that is being facilitated to the ecosystem to grow the economy at scale. And this can be a very, very game changer if it's being done right.
Okay, so Dr. Egbesola, I quickly need to get your response on what Dr. Obele has said. He talked about government intelligence and he talked about politicization of government investments and initiatives. You have interacted with the government over time, over several policies and all that. Do you think that the government has that intelligence, that resource to drive this particular initiative? And do you think it will not be turning this into some sort of bureaucratic seizures in terms of implementation?
Yes, I agree totally with him. I agree that starting it Q1 next year is feasible. It's feasible, very, very feasible. And also because this initiative has been undergoing an incubation period for over 2 years, even before this government came in. So it's not a new initiative. There's a lot of engagement that has gone under for a number of times. There has been a lot of pilot phases, test running that has been on silently over a period of time. And this will have get every stakeholder well enough to be able to now kickstart it come Q1 of 2026. So to me, it's achievable and we're going to see it work. So my concern will really be that when it comes on board, how prepared will the MSME be to take advantage of it? That should be one of the key things that we should be talking about, which Dr. Obele also mentioned. And I think that is very, very critical. As much as we are building this process of starting this, rolling it out, we should also be strategic about building structures, building an enabling environment, building other capacity that will assist the MSMEs to be able to take full advantage of it. Because if it is not taken advantage of, it will just be another waste of time, another waste of government fund and all of that. So for me, it's time now for government to begin to have a very strong handshake with all MSME community, particularly stakeholders in the MSME ecosystem, to see how they can carry that.
Okay, so I appreciate the fact that you landed there in terms of the sincerity on the part of governments. Finally, Dr. Obele, now this administration since inception has been talking about financial and trade reforms in achieving national economic transformation, but you have been a huge critic of government and its policy initiative. Now, is it looking more like it for you?
Interesting for you to say I've been a huge critic. I just think I'll come to that. We don't have time. So to start with, this is a very good progress in the right direction. But if there's a terminology I've always used in my conversations will be, this is necessary. It's important we have this, but it's not sufficient. All right. We also underestimate the level of effort it requires to get Nigeria to a very prosperous and booming place as an economy. We're not talking about just GDP from a numbers perspective. We're talking about GDP from a place where SMEs are prosperous, individuals are prosperous, households are prosperous, GDP that creates employment and all of that. So to be able to achieve at that level, which is where my argument has always come from, is that we need platforms like this to drive inclusion in the space, but also need not just the policies, but also the structural reforms, the mobilization of economic agents like regulators and OPSs and institutions, generally capacity building and all that to facilitate. So for instance, Nigeria does not have a very strategic high-level national services policy or even a trade policy that can compete favorably at the level of the AFCFTA. All right, so we need to begin to look at those dynamics at a more deeper place. What sectors are we prioritizing and why? What sectors have the highest return on investment when it comes to not just GDP, but facilitating economic prosperity? So these are the very deep conversations that it's going to require a lot of effort to unlock, to prioritize, to scenario plan, and to navigate the best way to roll out the effectiveness of the sector in terms of how we deliver in those sectors or change or development in those sectors to yield the returns that we envisage that those sectors will have. So I think these are very critical points that are very important for a developing economy. I mean, Nigerian economy has been developing for a long time, and there's been a lot of initiatives, all right, that has been rolled out, and this is one of the very good, brilliant ones.
Okay.
There've been a lot of brilliant policies as well, but if the structural reforms are not there, at best, the initiatives will be necessary and good to have, nice to have, but they will not be sufficient. But because sufficiency of things is hinged to a very large extent on so for instance, the Naira, the exchange rate is hinged on the productivity level of any economy. All right. So what determines productivity are the structural dynamics around things, not just the enablers. Technology is an enabler.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, the government has come out to say that it is a centralized electronic platform, and we hope that they will be able to back it up with structural and infrastructural reforms so that we can actually smile at the end of the day and see the success of this particular initiative. Dr. Gospel Obele, should I say international economist right now, and Dr. Femi Egbesola, President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.